3 years ago, Daniel Carter disappeared from his own life. There was no fight that morning, no dramatic goodbye, and no message left behind. When Olivia Parker woke up that day, the small apartment felt strangely quiet. The sunlight slipped through the curtains and stretched across the empty bed beside her. At first, she thought Daniel had already gone to work. That happened sometimes when he had early meetings. She stretched her arm across his side of the mattress, expecting to feel warmth. But the sheets were cold. Olivia sat up slowly. Something about the silence felt wrong. She walked to the kitchen, expecting to see him making coffee like he did every morning. The smell of coffee usually filled the apartment before she even opened her eyes. But that morning the kitchen was empty. The coffee machine was untouched. His favorite mug was still sitting exactly where it had been the night before. She checked the living room, nothing. Then she noticed something strange. Daniel's keys were gone, but most of his things were still there. His jacket hung on the chair. His laptop was on the desk. Even his wallet was sitting near the door. It didn't make sense. Olivia grabbed her. The call went straight to voicemail. At first, she told herself not to panic. Maybe his phone battery had died? Maybe he had gone out for a quick walk to clear his head. The last few weeks had been stressful for both of them. Work had been demanding for Daniel, and their marriage had been going through a quiet storm. But deep down, Olivia knew something was wrong because 2 nights earlier, Daniel had discovered the truth. The memory of that moment still burned in her mind. She had been careless. A message had appeared on her phone while Daniel was standing beside her in the kitchen. She saw the way his eyes moved to the screen, the way his expression changed instantly. He didn't say anything at first. He simply looked at the message again, then looked at her. There had been no shouting, no dramatic scene, only silence. And somehow that silence had been far worse. Olivia had tried to explain. She told him it meant nothing. She said it was a mistake that had happened during a lonely moment. She promised it would never happen again. Daniel had listened quietly, but his eyes were filled with something she had never seen before. Disappointment, not anger, not rage, just deep sadness. That night he barely spoke. He sat by the window for hours, staring at the dark city outside. Olivia had tried to talk to him again, but he only said one sentence: "I need time to think." 2 days later, he was gone. Olivia spent the entire morning calling him again and again. Every call went unanswered. By noon, she started contacting his friends. No one had seen him. His coworkers said he had not shown up at the office. By evening, panic had replaced confusion. She drove through the city searching for places he liked to visit. The small park near their apartment. The quiet cafe where he sometimes worked on his laptop. The bookstore they loved visiting on weekends. He wasn't anywhere. The next day she went to the police station. The officer behind the desk listened politely but didn't seem very concerned. "Adults sometimes leave on their own," the officer explained calmly. "If there's no sign of danger, it may simply be a personal decision." Those words hit Olivia harder than she expected. A personal decision. Did that mean Daniel had chosen to leave her? The idea twisted painfully in her chest. Days turned into weeks. Olivia kept searching. She checked hospitals. She called distant relatives. She even contacted old college friends Daniel had not spoken to in years. Nothing. Every door led to the same answer: no one knew where he was. Eventually, the world around her moved on. But Olivia didn't. The apartment felt larger and emptier with every passing week. Daniel's belongings remained untouched. His clothes stayed folded in the closet. His books sat neatly on the shelves. Sometimes Olivia would stand in the living room late at night and imagine hearing his footsteps near the door. But the door never opened. After several months, reality slowly settled in. Daniel was gone. Whether he had left because he needed space or because he could not forgive her, Olivia did not know. But the result was the same. She had lost him. Time continued moving forward. A year later, Olivia opened a small bookstore downtown. It had always been her dream to run a quiet place filled with stories. The shop wasn't big, but it had warm wooden shelves, soft lighting, and a comfortable corner where customers could sit and read. The bookstore helped her stay busy. During the day, she smiled at customers, recommended novels, and organized new arrivals. The simple routine gave her life a sense of order again. But evenings were different. When the last customer left and the door closed behind them, the silence returned. Olivia would walk home through the quiet streets, carrying the same question she had carried for months. Where was Daniel? Had he started a new life somewhere else? Did he hate her? Or worse, had he simply forgotten her? Sometimes she replayed the past again and again in her mind, searching for the exact moment everything broke. She remembered the early days of their relationship. They had met in college during a literature class. Daniel had been quiet but thoughtful. He loved writing small notes in the margins of his books, and he always noticed details other people ignored. Olivia had been drawn to that calm presence immediately. They started studying together, then spending more time talking about life, dreams, and future plans. Daniel wanted to work in architecture. Olivia dreamed about opening a bookstore. Their relationship grew naturally, like two people discovering the same path at the same time. They married 5 years later. For a while, life felt perfect, but over time, small cracks appeared. Daniel's career became more demanding. He worked longer hours. Olivia often stayed home alone in the evenings. Conversations became shorter. Moments together became rare. Loneliness slowly crept into their lives, and that loneliness had led Olivia to make the worst decision of her life. It had been brief. It had meant nothing, but it had destroyed everything. 3 years passed. One rainy evening, Olivia stayed late in the bookstore organizing old storage boxes. Outside, water tapped softly against the windows while distant. Traffic hummed through the city. She opened one dusty box filled with old photographs and papers. Most of the pictures were from her early years with Daniel. Vacations. Birthday dinners. Weekend road trips. Then she found a photograph that made her stop breathing for a moment. It showed Daniel standing beside her near the ocean. The wind had pushed her hair across her face while he laughed at something she had just said. His arm rested comfortably around her shoulders. They looked happy, not the forced smiles people show for cameras. Real happiness. Olivia sat down slowly in the small chair behind the counter. Her fingers traced the edge of the photograph. For 3 years she had lived with regret, but she had never truly faced the past. She had accepted Daniel's disappearance as something permanent, something that could never be changed. But in that quiet moment, a new thought appeared. What if he was still out there somewhere? What if he had simply disappeared from her life? Not from the world. The idea grew stronger the more she thought about it. Maybe she could still find him. Maybe she could finally hear the truth directly from him, even if the truth hurt. Even if he told her he never wanted to see her again. At least she would know. The next morning, Olivia woke up earlier than usual. The decision she had made the night before still felt terrifying, but it also felt necessary. She dressed quickly and left the apartment. The city was still quiet as she walked toward a small office building near the center of town. Her heart beat faster with every step. Inside the building, she followed a narrow hallway until she reached a door with a frosted glass window. The words printed on the glass were simple: Lucas Bennett, private investigator. Olivia stood there for several seconds. This was the moment that would reopen everything she had tried to bury, but she took a deep breath and knocked. A few moments later, the door opened. Lucas Bennett looked calm and observant. His eyes studied her carefully, the way someone trained to notice details might study a complicated puzzle. "Can I help you?" he asked. Olivia hesitated before speaking. "My husband disappeared 3 years ago," she said quietly, "and I want to find him." Lucas invited her inside the office. The room was simple but organized. Files were stacked neatly on a large desk, and a small window let in soft morning light. Olivia explained everything. She told him about Daniel, about the night he discovered the truth, about the silence that followed, and about the morning she woke up to an empty apartment. Lucas listened without interrupting. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair and folded his hands thoughtfully. "People rarely vanish without leaving a trace," he said calmly. "Everyone leaves small clues behind, even when they try not to." Olivia looked at him with nervous hope. "Do you think you can find him?" Lucas gave a small nod. "If he's still out there," he said, "there's a good chance I will." Olivia felt her heart beating faster. But another question remained hidden deep inside her mind. What if Daniel had truly moved on? What if finding him meant discovering that she had already lost him forever? Even so, she knew one thing for certain. After 3 years of silence, she was finally ready to face the truth. 2 weeks passed after Olivia hired Lucas Bennett. During those 14 days, every hour felt longer than usual. Olivia tried to focus on her bookstore, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the same question. Somewhere in the world, Daniel Carter was living his life. The idea felt strange after 3 years of silence. Each morning she opened the bookstore, arranged the books neatly on the wooden shelves, and greeted customers with a polite smile. People came to buy novels, children's stories, and travel guides. They chatted about their day, asked for recommendations, and sometimes stayed to read in the small corner near the window. But Olivia's mind was somewhere else. Every time the doorbell rang, her heart jumped for a second. Every time her phone vibrated, she quickly reached for it. She kept expecting Lucas to call with news. At night, she returned to her quiet apartment and sat by the window. Remembering the past, the city lights blinked in the distance while memories of Daniel moved through her mind, like old scenes from a forgotten movie. She remembered the way he laughed when something truly surprised him. She remembered the quiet way he listened whenever she spoke about her dreams. Daniel had always been calm, patient, and thoughtful, and she had heard him. That truth never changed. On the 15th day, Olivia was organizing a stack of new books when her phone rang. The number on the screen was unfamiliar. Her hands trembled as she answered. "Hello, Miss Parker," a calm voice said. "This is Lucas Bennett." Olivia's heart began pounding. For a moment, she could not speak. "I found him," Lucas said simply. The words echoed inside her mind. Found him. Daniel was real. He existed somewhere beyond the silence of the last 3 years. "Where is he?" she asked quietly. Lucas paused for a moment before answering. "He's living in a coastal town about 6 hours from the city." The ocean. Olivia felt a strange mix of emotions. Daniel had always loved the sea. Whenever they needed a break from the busy city, he suggested short trips to the coast. He liked the calm sound of waves and the fresh air, the idea that he had chosen to live near. The ocean felt very much like him. "Is he okay?" she asked. Lucas's voice remained calm. "Yes, from what I can see, he's doing well." Olivia leaned slowly against the counter. Relief filled her chest. But another emotion quickly followed. Pain. Daniel had continued his life without her. Lucas gave her the address and explained how he had confirmed Daniel's identity. The details sounded distant in Olivia's mind because one thought kept repeating itself. She was about to see him again after 3 years. That night, Olivia barely slept. She packed a small bag and prepared for the long drive the next morning. Every possibility moved through her thoughts. Maybe Daniel would be angry. Maybe he would refuse to speak to her. Maybe he had built a completely new life. She didn't know what waited at the end of road, but she knew she needed to see him with her own eyes. The next morning, Olivia started driving before sunrise. The sky slowly brightened as she left the city behind. Tall buildings disappeared in the rearview mirror, replaced by long highways and open landscapes. The road stretched forward endlessly. Her hands held the steering wheel tightly while her mind drifted between hope and fear. During the drive, she remembered the last moment she had seen Daniel. He had been standing near the apartment window late at night. The room was dark except for the soft streetlight outside. His expression had been calm but distant. She had asked him what he was thinking. He had simply said, "I need time." She never expected that time would last 3 years. Hours passed as Olivia drove closer to the coast. The air slowly changed. The wind carried the faint smell of salt and seawater. By early afternoon, she reached the small town Lucas had mentioned. It was peaceful and quiet. Narrow streets ran between small houses painted in soft colors. Seagulls circled in the sky while the distant ocean shimmered under the sunlight. It felt like a place built for calm lives, a place where people came to start. Olivia followed the directions Lucas had given her until she reached a quiet neighborhood near the shore. Finally, she saw the address. A small wooden house stood at the end of the end street. It had a simple porch and a small garden filled with bright flowers. The place looked warm and welcoming, the kind of home someone builds carefully over time. Olivia parked her car across the road. Her heart beat faster as she stared at the house. Daniel was inside. For 3 years he had existed only in memories and questions. Now he was only a few steps away. Her hands rested on the steering wheel while she tried to calm her breathing. Part of her wanted to walk to the door immediately. Another part of her wanted to turn the car around and drive away before reopening the past. Before she could decide, the front door opened. Olivia froze. Daniel stepped outside. For a moment, the world seemed to stop moving. He looked slightly different, but unmistakably the same man she had once loved. His hair was a little longer now, and his face carried the calm maturity of someone who had lived through difficult years, but his eyes looked peaceful. That was the first thing Olivia noticed. Peaceful. Then something unexpected happened. A small girl ran out of the house behind him. She couldn't have been more than 4 years old. Her laughter filled the quiet street as she wrapped her tiny arms around Daniel's legs. Daniel bent down and lifted her easily into his arms. He smiled. A real, warm smile. Olivia felt something inside her chest break softly. For a few seconds, she simply watched them. Daniel spoke gently to the child while she pointed excitedly toward the street. Her voice was bright and happy. Olivia realized something. Immediately, this was his daughter. Her heart dropped. But the moment was not over yet. A woman appeared at the doorway. She walked outside calmly and placed her hand on Daniel's shoulder. Her expression was soft and familiar, the kind of comfort shared between two people who live together. Daniel said something to her, and she smiled at the little girl. The scene looked simple. A father, a mother, a child, a family. Olivia's vision blurred as tears filled her eyes. For 3 years, she had lived with regret, imagining that Daniel might still be alone somewhere. Part of her had secretly hoped that he missed her the same way she missed him. But the truth stood right in front of her. Daniel had moved on. Completely. He had built a new life, a new family. Olivia lowered her head slightly, trying to control the sudden wave of emotions inside her chest. She didn't belong here. This peaceful life had nothing to do with her anymore. Slowly, she started the car. Engine leaving quietly seemed like the right choice. There was no reason to reopen old wounds. Daniel looked happy, and she didn't want to disturb the life he had created. But as the car moved slightly forward, something unexpected happened. Daniel turned his head toward the street. His eyes landed directly on Olivia's car. At first, his expression showed simple curiosity. Then, recognition struck him. Instantly, his entire face changed. Shock appeared in his eyes. He gently placed the little girl on the ground and said something to the woman beside him. She looked confused but nodded. Then Daniel began walking toward the road toward Olivia. Her heart started racing. For 3 years she had imagined this moment in many different ways. None of those imaginations felt as real or as terrifying as this one. Daniel reached the side of her car and stopped. For a moment he simply stood there, looking at her through the window. 3 years of silence filled the air between them. Finally, Olivia slowly lowered the window. Neither of them spoke at first. The ocean breeze moved gently through the street while distant waves rolled quietly. Against the shore, Daniel's voice finally broke the silence. "Olivia?" Her throat felt tight. "Hi, Daniel." His expression was calm but filled with confusion. "I didn't expect to see you here," he said slowly. Olivia forced herself to breathe normally. "I hired someone to find you." Daniel's eyebrows lifted slightly. "A detective." She nodded. The words felt strange after everything that had happened. For several seconds, Daniel remained silent. He glanced briefly toward the house behind him, where the little girl was now playing near the porch while the woman watched from the doorway. Then he looked back at Olivia. The calm peace in his eyes had been replaced by something deeper. Old memories, old emotions. "Why now?" he asked quietly. The question carried years of distance inside it. Olivia opened her mouth to answer, but the words felt heavy because she knew the truth. She had come searching for might hurt more than the silence she had lived with. And the moment she spoke, nothing between them would ever remain the same again. The sunlight reflected off the ocean as Olivia sat in her car, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. Daniel was standing there just a few feet away, and for the first time in 3 years she could see him clearly. His calm face, the subtle lines that had appeared over time, and the gentle way he watched the little girl playing in the yard. It all felt painfully real. The scene was so ordinary and peaceful, yet to Olivia it was devastating. She had imagined this moment countless times, but reality was always sharper, heavier, and more complicated. Her heart raced as she finally lowered the window. "Hi, Daniel," she whispered, her voice trembling despite her effort to sound composed. Daniel's eyes softened when they met hers. "Olivia," he said quietly, his tone carrying a strange mixture of surprise, caution, and curiosity. He took a careful step closer, but never breaking the invisible line between the life he had built and the life she represented. "I didn't expect to see you here," he added. His voice was steady but gentle, like someone trying to control a wave of emotions threatening to rise. Olivia nodded, trying to breathe normally. Every part of her wanted to leap out of the car and run toward him, to wrap her arms around him and erase the years of silence. But she stayed seated, trapped between longing and fear, knowing that whatever happened next could never undo the past. I hired someone to find you," she admitted, her voice soft but determined. She wanted honesty, even if it hurt. Daniel blinked slowly, absorbing her words. "A detective?" he asked, his voice calm, almost disbelieving. "Yes," Olivia replied, the single word carrying 3 years of regret, anxiety, and unanswered questions. The truth finally left her mouth, and for a moment the street around them felt impossibly silent. The little girl stopped playing and watched curiously from the porch, sensing something was different. The woman standing behind her smiled faintly but remained silent, respecting the quiet tension between the two people standing near the car. Daniel's gaze drifted toward the house for a moment. His eyes softened as he looked at the child, the small figure who represented a life Olivia had never been part of. Then, slowly, he turned back to Olivia. His expression was calm, but there was something beneath the surface, a mixture of pain, reflection, and careful restraint. "Why now?" he asked finally. The question wasn't angry, but it carried years of unsaid words and suppressed emotions. It was the kind of question that weighed heavily, because answers could open old wounds or offer closure, sometimes both at once. Olivia's chest tightened. She wanted to explain everything, the regret, the guilt, the endless nights spent wondering if he was okay. "Because I never stopped regretting what I did," she said honestly. "I needed to know if you were okay. I needed to know the truth." Daniel looked down for a moment, his hands brushing the back of his neck. He exhaled slowly, as if releasing something he had carried silently for years. "I am okay," he said softly, but Olivia noticed the small pause in his words, the hesitation that hinted at a lifetime of thought behind that simple statement. She nodded, trying to process the calm yet layered tone in his voice. "I can see that," she murmured. Her gaze shifted instinctively toward the small girl who was now picking up seashells from the sand near the porch. Daniel followed her eyes, and a faint smile touched his lips. "She's yours?" Olivia asked, her voice breaking slightly. She tried to mask the ache in her chest, but it slipped through. "Yes," Daniel replied gently. "She's my daughter and the woman." Olivia's voice was quieter now, hesitant, almost fearful of the answer. "My wife," Daniel said, the words simple but weighted with meaning. Olivia felt a sharp pang in her chest. She swallowed hard, trying to steady herself. The words were not meant to hurt her, yet they pierced through her inescapable regret. This was not a reunion of lost lovers. It was a meeting of two lives that had once intersected and now existed on different planes. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The ocean breeze carried a soft, salty scent through the quiet street. Waves rolled lazily in the distance, mirroring the slow, steady rhythm of Olivia's racing heart. She felt a mixture of relief, sorrow, and something she could barely name, hope that maybe forgiveness could coexist with loss. Daniel finally spoke, his voice softer this time. "I didn't disappear because I hated you." He paused, letting the words hang in the air, giving Olivia a moment to absorb their weight. "I left because I knew if I stayed, I would keep loving you." Her breath caught. The words were not the accusations she feared. They weren't meant to blame her or punish her. They were honest, and the truth cut more deeply than anger ever could. Olivia looked at him, tears welling in her eyes. She remembered the night he had left, the silence that followed the truth she had revealed. That silence had been heavier than any argument, heavier than any fight. It was a punishment she had inflicted on herself for years, carried through endless nights of reflection and solitude. "I know," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I deserved that." Daniel shook his head slightly, a faint, almost imperceptible motion. "No one deserves to carry regret forever," he said. His eyes shifted toward the little girl again. And Olivia noticed a gentleness there, a soft happiness that was untouched by past mistakes. "She changed my life," he added quietly, his voice carrying a subtle warmth. A light that Olivia had longed to see. Olivia followed his gaze and saw the child playing in the sand, oblivious to the tension between the adults. She was laughing, innocent and unburdened, a symbol of life moving forward, of hope and love that existed beyond mistakes. "She's beautiful," Olivia said softly, her voice catching slightly. Daniel gave a faint smile. Not for her, not because of her, but because of the life he had built. Then he turned back to Olivia, and his gaze carried something unexpected. There was no anger, no resentment, only honesty. "I forgave you a long time ago," he said. The words struck her harder than any blame ever could. Forgiveness, simple, quiet, and complete. 3 years of guilt, 3 years of self-punishment seemed to lighten ever so slightly with those words. Olivia blinked rapidly, letting tears spill freely now. The kind of tears that carry both sorrow and relief. "I just couldn't stay," Daniel added softly, his voice almost a whisper, acknowledging the truth that both of them carried silently. "It would have destroyed me." Olivia nodded slowly, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "I understand," she said. For the first time in years, she felt a strange calm settle in her chest. Pain remained, yes, but it was lighter now, less consuming. Acceptance began to replace longing. Daniel looked out toward the ocean once more, his eyes following the horizon as if measuring time and distance and all the years that had passed. "I hope you find happiness too, Olivia," he said finally. Turning back to her with a gentle, sincere expression, she smiled faintly, small but genuine. "I will," she replied, and she meant it. The weight of regret, the endless self-blame, and the haunting question of what if had finally found their answer. Daniel had moved on. He had built a life, a family, and he had found peace. And Olivia finally could begin her own journey toward the same. She stayed in the car a few moments longer. Watching Daniel walk back toward his house, the little girl running alongside him, The woman who was now his wife followed, smiling warmly, unaware of the silent exchange that had just passed between two people who had shared a love once. Deeply, irrevocably, Olivia started the engine slowly. She did not look back immediately. The road ahead stretched toward the horizon, bathed in the soft golden light of the late afternoon sun. The ocean whispered beside her, waves crashing gently against the shore, as if echoing the rhythm of her heart. For 3 years, the silence had haunted her. Now it no longer had power over her. She drove away slowly, tears still streaming, but this time they were tears of release. She realized that love sometimes exists not to bind, but to teach. Some people are part of our lives to shape us, to challenge us, and to leave, even when we do not want them to, as Olivia drove along the coast. The ocean beside her reflecting the fading sun. She understood something profound. Life moves forward, even after heartbreak. Forgiveness is possible even when pain lingers. And sometimes the truth that shatters us is also the truth that finally sets us free. The car passed the small wooden house, the laughter of a child drifting faintly in the wind. And Olivia felt an odd combination of sorrow and peace. She had faced the past, witnessed the life Daniel had built, and accepted that she had no place in it. But that acceptance was not empty. It was full of clarity, compassion, and a renewed sense of hope. By the time she reached the highway again, the ocean stretched endlessly beside her. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Her tears had dried on her cheeks, leaving a sense of lightness she had not felt in years. Olivia knew one thing with certainty. She had been given a chance to close the chapter properly, to face the consequences of her choices, and to finally begin again. The love she had shared with Daniel would always be a part of her, but it no longer had to control her. And for the first time in a long time, Olivia Parker felt ready to embrace her own future, whatever it held, with courage, grace, and an open heart. Some loves are never forgotten, but sometimes letting go is the only way to truly live.